Assalamu alaikum students, welcome back to the American literature class, and we've been doing the essay on self-reliance by R.W. Emerson. We've had a few lectures on this essay, and because of the depth of detail that Emerson provides us, we need to study this topic from all possible angles. And you will have seen in the previous lectures how he gives you examples and how he defines what exactly he means by self-reliance. In the previous lecture, we discussed how Emerson puts emphasis on the individual as opposed to the ancestors or the great names in the past. He gives us examples of literature, of the arts. He gives us the examples from various parts of the world and tries to emphasize the fact that the common man, the ordinary man in the street, needs to be relied upon, and the ordinary man in the street needs to rely upon his own self, his own strength, and not look for inspiration to outside agencies. So this is something that Emerson has explained with a great with great detail, and it's with the help of examples he tells us how we need to rely on our own initiatives, our own inspirations, and how we must not look at those who did great things in the past. He gives us various examples. If you remember, one of the examples that he has given is of placing your head upon your shoulder. Now, if you do that, and I demonstrated it physically to you also, if you put your head on your shoulder, it means you are looking back at the past. So when you're looking back at the past, it means you are thinking about people who are no more, people who are dead and gone. And if you look at their examples, and if you quote their examples, then according to Emerson, you will not be successful, because the people who performed great deeds or who created great works of art and literature and engineering did not look for inspiration elsewhere. They looked for inspiration inside themselves. They used their own minds, their own imagination, and their own hands to create whatever it is that we now consider wonderful. So he gives examples of Shakespeare, and he says that Shakespeare did not get instruction from anyone. Whatever he wrote about was inspired by his own personality. And in the same way, he gives us various examples. He gives us the example of the acorn and the oak tree. And he says that the acorn cannot be better than the oak tree, because the acorn, once it falls to the ground, is dead and gone. The oak tree remains. So you cannot say that the acorn is better than the oak tree, just as you cannot say that the parent is better than the child, because the parents put all that is best of them in the child, and therefore the child has to be better than the parents. Now, this is a rather unusual way of thinking, but Emerson is laying focus on the present day individual being the best that the world can provide. He says we don't need to look for inspiration and ideas outside of ourselves. We need to have confidence in ourselves, and it's only when we have confidence in ourselves that we will be able to produce the best of works. It's only then that we'll be able to produce great works. So he lays a lot of emphasis on the individual, and in doing this he also attacks what we call systems or institutions. He gives us examples of the history of the Roman Empire, and he says that you have one Caesar who is born, and for centuries after that we keep on hearing about the wonders of the Roman Empire. And in the same breath he mentions Christ, and he says one Christ is born and the whole world talks of nothing but Christianity. So he brings in these two rather unusual examples in order to explain that we must focus on the individual's strength, on the individual's strong points, and not make institutions out of individuals. Whatever wonderful work an individual performs or creates is completed and finished with the individual. It should not go on to posterity and be held up as the most wonderful thing that is done, because the most wonderful thing that is being done, according to Emerson, is what is being done now, what is being done here. So the here and the now, and the individual who is present in the here and the now, is the one that is most important, not some person who lived 10 centuries ago or who lived in ancient Egypt or ancient Greece. So throughout this essay his focus has been on the here and the now, the individual, the common man in the street, not some great names. So let us continue from where we left off and see what new points Emerson comes up with in the essay on self-reliance. The centuries, he says, are conspirators against the sanity and authority of the soul. Time and space are but physiological colors which the eye makes, but the soul is light. Where it is day, where it was is night. And history is an impertinence and an injury if it be anything more than a cheerful apologue or parable of my being and becoming. So reinforcing the here and the now, the person who is present now. He says the centuries are conspirators against the sanity and authority of the soul. If you start thinking about the past, you go mad, because there are so many examples. Which ones are you to follow and which to discard? This is something that is very difficult to decide. Time and space are but physiological colors which the eye makes. Says that what is most important is light. Where the soul is light. Where the soul was is night. Obviously, light is preferable to darkness. The day is preferable to the night. So he brings in history as night, history as the time that is dark, the time that is over and done with. The present moment is the moment that you need to live in, not in the past. So he says history is an impertinence and an injury, because I cannot spend my whole life living in the past. I need to live in the present and contribute the best that I can to the present moment. Man is timid and apologetic. Now here he brings in a slightly different angle of research. He is no longer upright. He does not say, I think, I am, but quotes some saint or sage. So man is timid and apologetic. He doesn't have confidence. He's always trying to make excuses for what is not. So Emerson says that man needs to be confident, needs to assert himself, needs to realize that he is the crown of creation. He doesn't need to go on quoting philosophers and sages for what they have said about the importance of man. He knows that he is important. He knows that he is the most important being on this earth. And so he needs to realize this importance and to act accordingly, not be making excuses all the time. He's ashamed before the blade of grass or the blowing rose. So he praises grass and he praises the flowers, and he says, you know, so and so said. For example, I say Wordsworth said that daffodils are beautiful. Well, can I not see that daffodils are beautiful? Why do I have to quote someone else? Why do I have to say that so and so said a rose by any other name smells just as sweet? Why can I not see this for myself? So this is what Emerson is trying to emphasize here. These roses under my window make no reference to former roses or better ones. So a rose that's growing does not consider itself worse than roses that have grown in the past. Why then should human beings consider themselves to be less than human beings in the past? Why should I say that I am less than the teachers in the past? Why should you as students say, oh, you know, the former batch was so good and they were such wonderful students and they did such wonderful assignments? Well, you can do just as well and you can do better than what has been done by earlier batches of students, and that should serve as an incentive to you people, because you need to perform the best work possible, and your work is the best because I as a teacher am concerned with you, not with batches of students that passed out in the previous years. My responsibility is towards you because you are the present class. I am not bothered about classes in the future. I am not bothered about classes in the past. My only concern is with you, just as your only concern must be with me, not with teachers that you had in school or in college, because those do not matter anymore. What matters is the teacher who is teaching you in the present moment. Okay? So he gives the example of the flowers, and he says that, you know, there are generations of flowers, but the one that is the best, the one that smells the sweetest and is the most beautiful is the one that is growing under my window now. Its nature is satisfied and it satisfies nature in all moments alike. So it does not think of past roses or roses to come, it lives in the present, and that is how human beings must also learn to live, not by postponing, not by remembering. One of the faults that Emerson finds with human beings is that he says, quote unquote, man does not live in the present, but with a reverted eye laments the past, or heedless of the riches that surround him, stands on tiptoe to foresee the future. So what Emerson is trying to emphasize is that we must live in the present moment, not think about the past, not be worried about what's going to happen in the future. This is the moment, live in it, use your abilities to the best of your capacities, and that is all that you need to be concerned with. You need to be happy in the present moment and not be lamenting about the past because that is dead and gone. It's not here, it's the here and the now that matters. He speaks the phraseology of I know not what David or Jeremiah or Paul. So, you know, this is further examples of how people quote from other people who are dead and gone, philosophers or maybe characters in the Bible, and say that, you know, this is what Christ said at a particular moment, or this is what Paul says about about Christ's life or something like that. We shall not always set so great a price on a few texts, on a few lives. We are like children who repeat by rote the sentences of grandames and tutors, and as they grow older, of the men and talents and characters they chance to see, painfully recollecting the exact words they spoke afterwards, when they come into the point of view which those who had uttered those sayings, they understand them and are willing to let the words go. For at any time they can use words as good when occasion comes. Okay, so he says that human beings spend a long time memorizing speeches and memorizing words of those who have gone before them, and they like quoting those great philosophers. You as students have experienced countless teachers, and you can give names of teachers who have taught you in the past, and maybe you come up with the idea that whatever one particular teacher is saying is not right, because my teacher in grade 5 said that you can only spell this word in this way, and therefore the spellings that are being given to me today are wrong. You can't do that, because this is something that is changing all the time. Language is changing. So if I say that this word is spelled, let's say color is spelled C-O-L-O-R, I am telling you that this is how the text is spelled by the Americans. We're not talking about British spellings which were used in a text that you read perhaps in your intermediate. So this is something that keeps on changing. So what I am telling you now is what you need to pay attention to, not what your previous teacher told you about Emerson or about any other writer that we'll be doing in this course. So just to give that as an example and to contextualize whatever Emerson is saying here, because he says that we human beings are like children. We memorize certain things and then we repeat them as if it's something wonderful that we are doing. But it's not. We need to say what we think. We have all been given minds. We've all been given the power to think, the power to plan and execute, and we must use those powers and not have them go to waste by always thinking of what people before you have done. So the concentration is on the here and the now. If we live truly, we shall see truly. It is as easy for the strong man to be strong as it is for the weak to be weak. So it doesn't take a lot of effort or a lot of strength to be strong. You can only be as strong as you allow yourself to be. If you believe in yourself, if you have confidence in yourself, you will be able to do anything and everything. But if you say that, oh, I cannot do it because my father told me that I can't do it, then that is wrong. That is wrong according to Emerson, because you need to rely on your own resources. You need to make sure that you have only yourself to depend on, and you don't shift your responsibility to other people, or you don't look at the past for examples on how to act. When a man lives with God, his voice shall be as sweet as the murmur of the brook and the rustle of the corn. So whatever you're doing depends on the company that you're keeping. If you keep good company, you will be able to produce good work. But if you do not keep good company, then your work, your ideas and thoughts and speech will be affected by the company that you keep. And now at last the highest truth on this subject remains unsaid. probably cannot be said, for all that we say is a far-off remembering of the intuition. Remember, he had told you about intuition and tuition, and he had said that what we are born with is intuition, and whatever else we do in life is tuition. It's what we learn. So what we do when we are children is act spontaneously, act at the dictates of the present, and not because we have been told to act in a particular way. That thought by which I can now nearest approach to say it is this. So this is how he's going to explain his philosophy. When good is near you, when you have life in yourself, it is not by any known or accustomed way. You shall not discern the footprints of any other. You shall not see the face of man. You shall not hear any name. The way, the thought, the good shall be wholly strange and new. It shall exclude, very important words, it shall exclude example and experience. You take the way from man, not to man. Okay? I know this is a little difficult to understand. Let me explain it in very simple words. He says the way, the thought, the good has to be new. It cannot be what was told to us by our ancestors. Whatever you do, you must carve out a path for yourself. You must not follow the footprints of another. You must not follow the examples that have been set by people who are dead and gone. You must carve out your own path. And you are the best because you live in the present moment. You live in the here and the now. So you are important, not what somebody who died 500 years ago said. You are important. You have to take responsibility. You have to accept responsibility, and you have to ensure that you deliver the best possible. All persons that ever all persons that ever existed are its forgotten ministers. Fear and hope are alike beneath it. There is somewhat low even in hope. In the hour of vision, there is nothing that can be called gratitude, nor properly joy. The soul raised over passion beholds identity and eternal causation, perceives the self-existence of truth and right, and calms itself with knowing that all things go well. So believe in yourself, have confidence in yourself, believe that you can do right, believe that you are true, and you will be. Believe that you can deliver the best, and the best is what you will be able to deliver. If you keep on thinking of people in the past or what you did in the past, you're not going to get anywhere at all. Vast spaces of nature, the Atlantic Ocean, the South Sea, long intervals of time, years, centuries, are of no account. So the Atlantic Ocean, the South Sea are places where you are not. You are here. Long intervals of times, years, centuries is where you are not. You exist in the present moment. You do not exist in 1944. You do not exist in 10th century BC. You exist now in this place at this moment. And so time and space apart from this space and this time are of no account. They're not important at all. This which I think and feel underlay every former state of life and circumstances as it underlies my present and what is called life and what is called death. Life only avails, not the having lived. Life is the present. The having lived is the past. So you must not think about other places, other times, but the present moment and the present place. Power ceases, and these lines are very important. Power ceases in the instant of repose. It resides in the moment of transition from a past to a new state, in the shooting of the gulf, in the darting to an aim. This one fact the world hates, that the soul becomes, for that forever degrades the past, turns all riches to poverty, all reputation to shame, confounds the saint with the rogue, shoves Jesus and Judas equally aside. So he says the world doesn't like this idea because the world would like the power to be in the past, not in the present. So when he talks about power being in the process and not the completed state, what he is saying is that we are important. Now is important. This place is important. Everything else, all other time, becomes immaterial. So he says the power lies in the process. The soul becomes. Once it has become, that is to be cast aside. And he says that if we are to think of the present moment and the present place, then for us the past has no significance. The present moment is what we must live in. The present is what we have to work in. Why then do we prate of self-reliance? Inasmuch as the soul is present, there will be power not confident but agent. To talk of reliance is a poor external way of speaking. Speak rather of that which relies, because it works and is. Who has more obedience than I masters me, though he should not raise his finger. Round him I must revolve by the gravitation of spirits. Now, this is a very unusual idea that he is presenting here. Who has more obedience than I masters me. Anyone who shows greater obedience is the one who masters me. Now, this is an antithetical statement. Normally, you say that the one who is obedient is the servant. But here Emerson says that any human being who shows greater obedience than I do is my master. So the master for him must show greater obedience than the servant. So it's not reliance that is important, it's the person who relies, and that is the individual. That is the person who lives in the present moment, in the present place. We consider virtue to be rhetoric. We consider rhetoric to be a virtue. We do not yet see that virtue is height, and that a man or a company of men, plastic and permeable to principles, by the law of nature must overpower and ride all cities, nations, kings, rich men, poets, who are not plastic and not permeable to principles. So it's people who will be willing to change with the changing environment, who will be able to rule over entire cities and kingdoms. So the individual, the flexible individual, the individual who accepts responsibility, the individual who is ready to bend, the individual who is ready to work, is the individual who has all the power. This is the ultimate fact which we so quickly reach on this as on every topic, the resolution of all into the ever-blessed One. Self-existence is the attribute of the Supreme Cause, and it constitutes the measures of good by the degree in which it enters into all lower forms. All things real are so by so much virtue as they contain. Commerce, husbandry, hunting, whaling, war, eloquence, personal weight are somewhat, and engage my respect as examples of its presence and impure action. So self-existence is the attribute of the Supreme Cause, and self-existence, the existence of the self, of the individual, is what is real. And what is real is what you make real, not what was in the past, not what was, but what is. So learn to live in the present moment, learn to work in the present moment, and not be thinking about the past. I see the same law working in nature for conservation and growth. Power is in nature the essential measurement of right. Nature suffers nothing to remain in her kingdoms which cannot help itself. The genesis and maturation of a planet, its poise and orbit, the bended tree recovering itself from the strong wind, the vital resources of every animal and vegetable are demonstrations of the self-sufficing and therefore self-relying soul. So in nature, he says, the same law works. Power is in nature the essential measure of right. And nature does not allow anything in her kingdoms to survive if it is not powerful. Remember the rule of the jungle, the law of the jungle is might is right. If you are strong, you survive. If you are weak, you die. So you have to be strong in order to survive. He says that the genesis and maturation of a planet is in the bended tree recovering from the wind. The tree has to bend before a strong wind. Every animal and vegetable has its own vital resources and it relies on itself. The only difference is the parasites. The parasites feed on the host body. You can have animal parasites, you can also have parasites in the plant kingdom, and these are plants, mainly veins, which cling to other plants, which will cling to trees and slowly take up all the resources that the tree or the strong plant possesses until the parasite becomes stronger. So he says in the world of nature, nature does not allow weaklings to prosper. And then of course Emerson sort of changes his stance a little, comes at the issue of self-reliance from a slightly different angle. He says, thus all concentrates, let us not rove, let us sit at home with the cause, let us stun and astonish the intruding rabble of men and books and institutions by a simple declaration of the divine fact. Bid the invaders take the shoes from off their feet, for God is here within. Let our simplicity judge them, and our docility to our own Lord demonstrate the poverty of nature and fortune beside our native riches. Okay, all right. So he says, this is what we need to do. Let us not rove, let us sit at home with the cause. Don't think that the answer lies outside of this place. The answer is here. The answer is now. Let us stun and astonish the intruding rabble of men. And here he takes men and books and institutions and puts them all in the category of intruding rabble. since what is important is the individual and this moment and this place, everything else, be it human beings, be it relatives, be it books, be it institutions, he says everything should be put aside, because we in the here, in the now, are doing what is the most wonderful. Bid the invaders take the shoes off. Bid these men and books and institutions respect you. So when he says bid the invaders take their shoes off, you know, when you are going into a place of worship, you take your shoes off. You show respect by going barefoot. So he says, tell these invaders, tell these men and books and institutions from the past to pay proper respect to the present, because God is here within. So when they come to me, they must show proper respect. I do not have to show them respect, because I am living in the present moment. I am confident, I accept responsibility, and therefore they must pay homage to me. They must show respect to me. But now we are in a mob. Man does not stand in awe of man, nor is his genius admonished to stay at home, to put itself in communication with the internal ocean, but it goes abroad to beg a cup of water of the urns of other men. We must go alone. I like the silent church before the service begins better than any preaching. How far off, and he gives the reason, how far off, how cool, how chaste the persons look, begirt each one with a precinct or sanctuary. So let us always sit. Okay, so he says the problem is we are a mob. We are a mob. We are not a group of people. We are a mob. We are human beings who have just gathered together for no particular reason. You know, a mob doesn't have direction. A group of people has direction. A group of people knows what it has to do, knows where it has to go, and when it has to do so. Whereas a mob does not know anything. The mob doesn't care for anyone. It doesn't care for the place, it doesn't care for the time or for the individual. So what Emerson says is that we have to organize ourselves. Right now, we are in the position of a mob, and we are impressed by other human beings without there being any cause for them. And then we're not willing to stay at home. We like to go out. As he says, human beings like to put themselves in communication with an ocean. Tell them to be in communication with the internal ocean, not go looking for the Arabian Sea, not go saying that I'm going to go to the US or Canada or Australia. We must stay here, stay at home, not rove, not go out of the home, because we have everything here. As he says, what human beings do is they will go out to beg a cup of water. They have the sea in their own house, and they have a well of fresh water in their own house, and they will go abroad to beg for water and say, you know, we don't have any drinking water. It's the willful blindness of human beings that Emerson is trying to point out here. And then we'd like to take everyone along. Students, when you get a chance to go out, if one student is going to the cafeteria, let's say, he'll take 3-4 students along. Why? It's not that he doesn't have the money. It's not that he doesn't have the physical strength to go and buy something there. but he just wants company. So as Emerson says, we are a mob. We go to other people. We do not see what is within ourselves. There's an ocean inside us, and yet we go asking other people for things that we have already. And then he says, we must learn to go alone, because the best thing that he has seen is when he is sitting silently in the church before the service begins, because that is when he can communicate with the Divine Spirit, and that is for him the most beautiful moment. So let us always sit, let us wait. Let us not be rushing around here and there. Why should we assume the faults of our friend or wife or father or child because they sit around our hearth or are said to have the same blood? And here he brings in a point that he has already referred to, and that is that the individual must not be responsible for the family. The concept of the family, actually, Emerson is attacking here. And he says, why should my father's or my brother's or my husband or my wife's problems be my problem? The excuse that is given is, so-and-so is your brother, so you must help him out. So-and-so is your sister, so you must help her out. So-and-so is an aunt, so please give her some money. She's very poor these days. As he says, why must their problems be made mine? I don't have enough for myself. Why should I be giving out to other people? All men have my blood, and I have all men's. So the reason that is given for helping your family is that, he's family. He's the same blood. And Emerson's point of view is that his blood is the same as that of all human beings. The whole human race traces its ancestry back to Adam and Eve. So in that sense, all human blood is the same. He says, all men have my blood, I have all men's. Not for that will I adopt their petulance of folly, even to the extent of being ashamed of it. But your isolation must not be mechanical, but spiritual, that is, must be elevation. At times the whole world seems to be in conspiracy to importune you with emphatic trifles. So he says, I'm not responsible for my family members just because they have the same blood. Since I have the same blood as all other human beings, I trace my ancestry back to Adam and Eve, as do all other human beings. Friend, child, client, sickness, fear, want, charity, all knock at once at thy closet door and say, come out unto us. But keep thy state, come not into their confusion. The power men possess to annoy men, I give them by a weak curiosity. No man can come near me but through my act. What we love, that we have, but by desire we bereave ourselves of the love. So he gives total responsibility, total authority to the individual. He says, people will come to ask you for health. They will come and they will want money, they will want your time, they will want your resources, they will want your strength. But you have to say no to them. You have to learn to say the word no. You cannot help other people because you're not responsible for them. He says, no man can come near me but through my act. No one has the authority or the power to approach me unless I give that person power. So people who come and beg for food, beg for money, They beg because you allow them to. Once you put a stop to this, once you tell them that you are not going to give them anything, they will go away. They will learn to depend on themselves, on their own resources, and not go from door to door begging. So he says, what we love, that we have. But by desire, we bereave ourselves of the love. If we start thinking about other people, if we start taking care of other people, other times, other places, then we will lose what we have. If we cannot at once rise to the sanctities of obedience and faith, let us at least resist our temptations. Temptations are very, very strong, and you have 100 different types of temptations in the world. Let us enter into the state of war and wake Thor and Woden, courage and constancy in our Saxon breast. So let us be strong enough, be courageous enough to say no to people, to say no to individuals who come to you for help. If it means going to war, well, be warriors. Learn to say no. This is to be done in our smooth times by speaking the truth. You go to war, you speak the truth, you go to war. You speak the truth, everyone fights with you. Check this lying hospitality and lying affection. Live no longer to the expectation of these deceived and deceiving people with whom we converse. Say to them, O father, O mother, O wife, O brother, O friend, I have lived with you after appearance hitherto. Henceforward, from this point onwards, I am the truths. I have enough of your lies. So what Emerson is saying is, tell your parents, tell your teachers, tell your students, tell your siblings, tell your children, your friends, tell them that you have spent enough time being hypocritical and that now you must leave off all hypocrisy and speak only the truth. Be it known unto you that henceforward I obey no law less than the eternal law. So the eternal law is what I am going to obey. I will have no covenants but proximities. I shall endeavor to nourish my parents, to support my family, to be the chaste husband of one wife, but these relations I must fulfill, I must fill after a new and unprecedented way. So he says there's going to be a total change in my personality, and I'm going to make this announcement. I'm going to tell people that whatever I have done up to this point was hypocritical, was lies, was dishonesty, but now I'm going to change, and whatever love and affection I show from this point onwards is going to be true love, true affection. I appeal from your customs. I must be myself. I cannot break myself any longer for you or you. If you can love me for what I am, we shall be the happier. If you cannot, I will still seek to deserve that you should. So I am going to change. You have to accept me for what I am. You have to love me for what I am. If I'm bad, you have to love me. If I'm good, you have to love me. I cannot change now because I'm going to be speaking the truth. I'm not going to try to save somebody's feelings. I am going to make sure that I tell the truth. I will not hide my tastes or aversions. If I don't like a particular person, I will tell them I don't like them. If I don't like what you've cooked, for example, I'll tell you this tastes horrible, please take it away. I will so trust that what is deep is holy, that I will do strongly before the sun and moon whatever only rejoices me and the heart appoints. If you are noble, I'll love you. If you're not, I'll not hurt you and myself by hypocritical attentions. So if you deserve my love, I will love you. In other words, what he's saying is, each one of us has to earn love. has to earn obedience and allegiance. This is not something that is given without its being earned. In order to be loved, you have to love. In order to be told the truth, you have to tell the truth. If you are true but not in the same truth with me, cleave to your companions. If you say that you're telling the truth and that your concept of truth is different from mine, I'll say goodbye to you. I will not raise a ruckus as to where you are going or why you are going, because I will seek my own. I will seek people who understand me, people who are willing to work with me, not with Tom, Dick or Harry. I do this not selfishly but humbly and truly. It is alike your interest and mine, and all men's, however long we have dwelt in lies, to live in truth. So we must speak the truth, we must live the truth. It does not matter if we have been lying up to this present moment. This point forward must only be the truth and nothing but the truth. Does this sound harsh today? Yes, it does sound harsh, but you will soon love what is dictated by your nature as well as mine. And if we follow the truth, it will bring us out safe at last. So we have to learn to speak the truth. We have to learn to accept the truth. Only when we learn to accept the truth will we be able to earn the love and affection of our fellow beings. Not before that. But so you may give these friends pain, yes, but I cannot sell my liberty and my power to save their sensibilities. If they feel upset, I am not responsible, because I am speaking the truth and you must learn to accept it. Besides, all persons have their moments of reason. When they look out into the region of absolute truth, then they will justify me and do the same thing. So this is something that other people will have to learn. Henceforward, from this moment on, I'm going to speak only the truth. And if people around me do not like it at that time, it's because they are hurt. But there will come a time when they will realize that I am speaking the truth, and then they will appreciate me. Then they will join me in speaking the truth. The populace think that your rejection of popular standards is a rejection of all standard, and mere antinomianism. Try saying this word also, antinomianism. In Christianity, an antinomian is one who holds that under the gospel dispensation of grace, the moral law is of no use or obligation, because faith alone is necessary to salvation. So he says that we cannot go according to the dictates of Christianity, because Christianity says faith alone is necessary. If you are a Christian, if you believe in Jesus Christ, that is enough to lead you to the path of salvation. But what Emerson is saying here is that I cannot think about what other people want or what other people consider the truth. I have to make sure that I develop my own standards, and once I have established my own standards, I must stick to them, I must adhere to them, and let the other people decide for themselves whether they want any communication with me or not. If they come round to my way of thinking, then I can have relationships with them. Otherwise, no matter what the relationship, I'm going to break away from it, because I want the truth. I want everything that I consider is right and not what somebody who died 1,000 years ago considered right. So the bold sensualist will use the name of philosophy to gild his crimes. You cannot be coming up with excuses. You have to make sure that you accept responsibility for your words and deeds, and it's only then that you will be able to not only adopt truth for what it is, but also propagate it. But the law of consciousness abides. There are two confessionals, in one or the other of which we must be shriven. You may fulfill your round of duties by clearing yourself in the direct or in the reflex way. So here the argument that he gives is that there is what he calls the law of consciousness. And what is told to us is that there are only two confessionals. There are only two ways in which you can be forgiven, in which you can be salvaged. You can be salvaged if you beg forgiveness directly, or if you adopt or if you appoint an intermediary. And when you appoint an intermediary, you are going back to the past. You are doing what you have been told to do, not what you consider is right. Consider whether you have satisfied your relations to father, mother, cousin, brother, neighbor, town, cat and dog, whether any of these can upbraid you. But I may also neglect this reflex standard and absolve me to myself. If I consider that I have done right, then my relations, my father, mother, sister, brother, town, cat, dog, are not of any significance to me, because I know that what I am doing is right. And if I am convinced that what I am doing is right, then that is what matters. Then nothing else matters but that. I have to be convinced that what I am doing is right. It denies the name of duty to many offices that are called duties. But if I can discharge its debts, it enables me to dispense with the popular code. If anyone imagines that this law is lax, let him keep its commandment one day. So, the standard that I set for myself is the one that I am going to follow. I am not going to go by standards that have been set for me by other people, whether they are prophets or philosophers or relations or friends or governments. I am only going to follow the path that I consider to be right. And if there is anyone who believes that this is something that is very easy to do, let him follow this commandment. Let him adopt this law for one day, and he will realize how difficult a standard I have set for myself. We're going to end here, but I'm going to quickly go over what we have done today in order to revise the ideas that I have presented and to reinforce what Emerson is trying to say about self-reliance. So let's quickly recap what we have done today. We're still continuing with the essay on self-reliance, and in this essay Emerson is trying to focus our attention on the individual, the present moment and the present place Throughout, he has been giving us different examples and trying to explain in different ways how we need to accept responsibility for our own actions, and how we must carve out a way for ourselves and not be dependent on the teachings and preachings of people in the past. He gives us different examples, and through examples he allows us to see how we can set our own standards, how we can carve out a path for ourselves and follow that. He lays a lot of emphasis on the individual's responsibilities. He lays a lot of emphasis on the individual's power and strength to do what is right. The section that we did on self-reliance today focuses on the emphasis of truth, of carving out a path for yourself, a way for yourself, which is the true path, which is the path of truth. And in doing this, he says we must not be dependent on what we have been taught by other people, but we must use the mind, the intellect, the intelligence that we have been given in order to decide what is the best for us. And the interesting thing is that in this part of the essay, Emerson says that I'm not responsible for my parents or for my teachers or my cousins or the government. I am responsible for myself, and therefore I am answerable only to myself and for myself. The sins, the crimes of other people are not mine. I am only responsible for myself. And people who say that you need to take care of other people because they are family or because they are friends are wrong, because I am not responsible for anyone else's thoughts and deeds and speech. I accept responsibility for my speech, my thoughts, my deeds, not for the deeds and works and thoughts of a father, a brother, a parent, a child, a cousin. So he says that I have to learn to carve out a path for myself, to see what is right, and then to follow that path. I must not look at what other people are trying to do. I have to be able to decide for myself what I want to do. And once I have made out the path of truth for myself, then I must follow it regardless of what people around me are saying, because people around me are going to try to take me away from this path. Whatever I have read, whatever I have been told will present a different path to me, but I have to discard all that. And remember, he talks about this rabble that is men and books and institutions, and he says that people will tell you that you should not do this. The books that you read will tell you that you should not do this. Institutions will tell you that what you are doing is wrong. But if you are convinced that what you're doing is right, then go ahead with it. Then accept responsibility. Then be willing to face the world. And once you are willing to face the world, once you have that conviction, then and then only will you be able to do what is right. And the same people who upbraid you and who scold you for being wrong, for doing wrong, will in time realize that what you're doing is right, and they will not only accept your point of view, they will join you, they will follow you. But you must not follow in the footsteps of a person who is no more, but just because you think that his philosophy is a good one. You must not do that. It's the here and the now. and the individual who is present in the here and the now, that is important. Not time past. He says, do not think of the past. Do not put your head over your shoulder, and do not stand on tiptoe to see what the future holds for you. It's the present, the now, that you have to worry about. Not something that happened in the past, not what people around you are doing. The space that is important is where you are right now. The time that is important is the now, the moment in which this is being said. What exists around you does not have importance. The place where you are is important. People who came up with philosophies or with theories of life 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago are not important. The people who are important are around you. It's not the kings or the presidents or the governors who are important. The people who are important are the people who surround you. And most important of all is you yourself. It's only when you accept that responsibility, when you are willing to face the world, that you can carve out a path for yourself. It is only then that you can decide what is right, and only you can decide what is right for you, not other people. I think that's enough for today. Hopefully we'll be able to finish this essay in the next lesson. So thank you very much for being patient listeners. Enjoy your day, and Allah Hafiz.